Welcome to Family Basics 101. I'm Dr. Bruce McClure, and as we continue our 5-part series on managing stress or managing a crisis, more specifically the stress of a crisis, let's talk today about the various stages of a crisis. When we look at the first stage, it is considered to be the impact stage. And in the impact stage, whether it hits with or without a warning, it's the point of contact between the situation that's taking place and the individual or the family who is being notified either emotionally or notified by observation of what that crisis is unfolding to be. It stuns to the very core of the emotions of the individual, and it actually lasts anywhere from 24 to 36 hours in terms of just the shock factor of what is happening. During this impact stage, it creates what some consider to be a fight or a flight feeling. I either want to just get away, I want to pretend like it's not happening, or it makes me very, very upset on the inside and I begin to lash out. So that's the fight or the flight of the impact stage. And during this stage as well, logic is numbed in terms of being able to really think clearly about what is happening. When we talk about the next stage of the crisis, it is considered to be the withdrawal or the confusion stage. It lasts anywhere from 3 to 5 days. The emotions are very high and they are very sensitive during this time period. The person in crisis don't know what to do or where to go. So it may almost appear as if they're wandering around in a daze, wandering around in a smoke. Individuals may attempt bargaining, and they really don't mind who they bargain with. They'll bargain with the doctors, they'll bargain with paramedics, they'll bargain with God, they'll bargain with friends, whoever they think can help them alleviate the pain of the shock and the confusion. The person is willing to bargain their way out of their crises. Individuals during this time period also may actually disconnect. They will disconnect emotionally, and yet they may be available at a lower emotional level, an inappropriate emotional level. It may appear as if the individual is in emotional distress. And when one is in emotional distress, it will show either extreme highs or extreme lows. But regardless, the distress is indicative because it is completely inappropriate behavior during the confusion stage. The individual may also, during this withdrawal confusion state, seek others to tell them what to do. Now, the challenge with the withdrawal and the confusion stage and an individual seeking help from others, for the most part, they appear as if they want the directions that others are given, but at another level, they are still withdrawn and has very little capacity to act upon in an appropriate manner the directions that they are seeking. The next stage is considered adjustment stage. It's a time of positive thoughts in the midst of all of the negatives that's going on. So when you look at the impact stage, when you look at the withdrawal and the confusion stage, and now moving into the adjustment stage, the person is now a little bit more capable of providing some healthy problem-solving techniques. They're beginning to look forward to a new object that gives life their meaning, rather than the object that was identified during the crises that is probably no longer available that gave meaning to life. It's a time where the individual moves to a more focused exploration of their future as they disconnect from the pain of the crisis event of the past. And they began to move back to a more spiritual look at the future as well. During the midst of a crisis, especially during the impact stage and during the withdrawal stage, there is actually at some level a disconnect from God. And that normally indicates itself by ungodly behaviors, ungodly attitudes, and at some point when the person is moving back into an adjustment, then you will see a return as well to more godly attitudes. And then that moves you into the hope stage. It typically requires many months to arrive back at this stage. And once a person gets into a stage of hope, they're willing now to reattach to something or someone in a more meaningful manner. And they're willing to become, or willing to begin at this time, to start testing reality in a positive way. Not challenging reality, but getting their feet wet again, walking in hope again, being more optimistic about the future, beginning to settle in and say that life is going to be okay. That's the hope stage. In the book of 2 Samuel, chapter 12, verses 15 through 23, there's an excellent Bible story about King David and a situation that created an absolute crisis in his life. The story begins, "And Nathan departed unto his house, and the Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife bare unto David, and it was very sick." Now you remember the background of the story. David has committed adultery with Bathsheba. David also has sent out a message at the hands of Uriah, Bathsheba's husband, to get him killed on the front line of battle. And Nathan the prophet will come to David and tell David very directly that his sins are known, the child is going to die, and that there would be chaos in his home forever. The sword would never ever leave David's home. So David is in crises. Now watch how he manages the crises. David therefore besought God for the child, and David fasted, went in, and lay all night upon the earth. And the elders of his house arose and went to him, to raise him up from the earth, but he would not raise up. Neither did he eat bread with them. And it came to pass on the seventh day that the child indeed died. And the servants of David feared to tell him that the child was dead. For they said, "Behold, while the child was yet alive, we spake unto him, and he would not hearken unto our voice. How will he then be vexed when we tell him that the child is dead?" But when David saw that his servants whispered, David perceived that the child was dead, and therefore he gets up and he asked them, "Is the child dead?" And they said, "Yes, he's dead." Now watch how David now begins to move out of the despair and out of the bargaining and begin to readjust and move into hope. The text says, he arose from the earth, washed, anointed himself, changed his apparel, and came to the house of the Lord and worshiped. And they looked at him, and when they inquired, they set bread before him, and he did eat. And then his servant said, "What thing is this that thou hast done? You fasted, you wept." And David said, "Well, that was when the child was alive. But God told me the child was going to die. And once the child died, it was time out for bargaining. And I had to begin to readjust to life. I have to move back into hope. And once I move back into hope, then I'm willing to begin to live in reality once more." I'll see you back in class again next time. Don't be late, and don't skip class.